My wife told me she was taking our daughter to stay with her sister for a few days. 3 hours later, I got an email from a property management company congratulating me on co-signing a 12-month lease for an apartment I had never seen. The apartment was in another city. My wife's name was on the lease. So was mine. I called her immediately. No answer. I called again. Nothing. Then the property manager sent the full paperwork. My income was listed correctly. My employer was correct. My social security number was correct. And at the bottom of the guarantor page was an electronic signature using my full legal name. I had never signed it. I was still staring at the screen when another email came in. This one was from our daughter's elementary school. It said they had received notice that she would be withdrawing effective Friday due to family relocation. That was when I understood my wife hadn't left because she needed space. She had already moved our child's life before I even knew there was a problem. My name is Ben Carter. I was 38 when this happened, living outside Indianapolis. I worked as a regional service manager for a company that repaired medical imaging equipment. Basically, if a hospital's MRI or CT scanner stopped working, somebody on my team got called. It paid well. Not absurd money, but enough that my wife, Claire, had stayed home with our daughter, Emma, for several years before going back to part-time work. Claire and I had been married 12 years. We met in our mid-20s. Nothing dramatic. Mutual friends, dinner, then another dinner. She was organized in a way I wasn't. I was patient in ways she wasn't. It worked. Emma came 4 years into the marriage. For most of our relationship, I thought we were boring in the healthiest possible way. Mortgage, soccer practice, Costco, neighborhood cookouts, arguments about whether the dishwasher was actually full enough to run. Normal married life. The first change happened about 7 months before she left. Claire started talking to her older sister, Rachel, constantly. Rachel lived in Louisville and had gone through a divorce 2 years earlier. She had come out of it with very strong opinions about marriage. Most of those opinions could be summarized as: never depend on a man, always have an exit. Assume nobody will protect you except yourself. I didn't have a problem with Rachel. Not really. She was blunt, but she had been through a rough divorce, and I understood why she saw things the way she did. Claire started repeating some of her phrases. She said our finances were too centralized. She wanted her own emergency savings. I told her that was fine. We already had separate checking accounts. I transferred money into hers every month. Then she wanted a credit card in only her name. Also fine. Then she wanted copies of every tax return, retirement statement, insurance policy, and mortgage record. That was the first time I asked why. Because I should know where everything is. You do? I know generally. What do you need specifically? She got annoyed. Why are you making this difficult? I wasn't. I printed everything. That was probably my first mistake, not giving her the information, assuming the request was still about transparency. Looking back, Claire wasn't gathering information. She was building a file. Around the same time, she started spending weekends in Louisville. Rachel needed help with her kids. Rachel was having a rough time. Rachel was renovating. There was always a reason. Emma sometimes went with her. Sometimes she stayed home with me. I didn't question it. I traveled for work too. Marriages require people being allowed to go places without filing an itinerary. Then one weekend Claire came home different. Not dramatic, just distant. She stopped leaving her phone on counters. Started taking it into the bathroom. Changed the passcode. That sounds suspicious now. At the time, I told myself I was noticing it because work had been stressful and I was getting paranoid. I didn't want to become the husband inspecting his wife's phone because she spent a weekend with her sister, so I ignored it. Then Emma mentioned Mom's friend Luke. We were driving back from soccer. She was in the back seat eating fries. "Who's Luke?" I asked. She shrugged. "Mom's friend." "From where?" "Aunt Rachel's." I kept my voice casual. "What does he do?" "I don't know." Then she added, "He has a dog named Pepper." Kids are terrible at keeping adult information compartmentalized. That evening, I asked Claire. Emma mentioned someone named Luke. She barely reacted. "Rachel's neighbor." "You know him?" "A little." "Okay." That was it. I let it go. Again. 2 months later, Claire started talking about moving. Not to Louisville, at least not directly. She said Indianapolis felt too expensive, too crowded. Our neighborhood was changing. The schools were getting worse. None of that was really true, especially the school part. We had specifically bought in that district because of the schools. Then she said maybe Emma would be happier somewhere smaller. I asked where. Claire shrugged. "Just somewhere different." I remember laughing. Very specific. She didn't laugh back. That was when I realized she wasn't floating an idea. She was checking my reaction. A week later, she asked whether my job could be remote. Not really. Why? "I manage field technicians." "But you're on a laptop half the time." "I'm also in hospitals half the time." She went quiet. Then asked whether I'd ever transfer territories. Maybe. "Louisville!" That was the first time she said it. I looked at her. "Why Louisville?" She shrugged again. "Rachel's there." "So?" "Family." I remember thinking it was odd. Not alarming, just odd. I told her we could talk about it later. We never did. At least not together. The morning she left was a Wednesday. I had a service meeting at 7 and was home by noon because one of our client visits canceled. Claire was packing a suitcase. Not hiding it. Just folding clothes on the bed. "What's going on?" She said she and Emma were going to Rachel's. "For what?" "I need a few days." That got my attention. "A few days from what?" She stopped folding. "Us." I stood in the doorway. "What happened?" "I don't want to fight." "We're not fighting." "Exactly." That confused me. She sat on the edge of the bed. "I'm not happy." I didn't know what to say. "How long?" "A while." "Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried." "When?" "Ben." That was her way of ending a question. I sat beside her. "Are you talking about separation?" "I don't know." "Are you coming back?" "I don't know." I looked at the suitcase. Then at her. "What about Emma?" "She's coming with me." "For a few days?" "Yes." I should have stopped there. Asked more questions. Demanded clarity. Instead, I thought, forcing a confrontation would make everything worse. I said, "Okay." She packed. Emma got home from school. Claire told her they were visiting Aunt Rachel. At 4:30, they drove away. I stood in the driveway and watched. Emma waved through the back window. Claire didn't. The lease email arrived at 7:36. The subject line said, "Welcome to Brookstone Landing. I almost deleted it." Then I saw the phrase, "Thank you, Benjamin Carter, for completing your guarantor agreement." I opened it. Apartment 214, 2 bedrooms, Louisville, Kentucky. Move-in date, Friday. Not next month, not eventually. Friday. 2 days away. The lease began the same week Claire supposedly needed a few days. I called the number in the email. The leasing agent was friendly. Too friendly for what she was about to tell me. "Yes, Mr. Carter. Everything has been approved." I didn't apply. Silence, then. "You're listed as guarantor." "I know. I did not sign this." Her tone changed instantly. "Okay, who submitted it?" "The primary applicant." "Claire Carter?" "Yes." "When?" "Last Monday, 9 days before she left." Was anyone else on the application? The agent paused. There is an additional authorized occupant. My stomach tightened. Who? Luke Reynolds. I went completely still. Spell that. She did. Same Luke. Rachel's neighbor. Dog named Pepper. I asked what relationship he was listed as. The agent hesitated. Household member. That could mean anything. It still told me enough. I ended the call and searched his name. Luke Reynolds, 39, worked in commercial insurance, Louisville. His profile picture showed a brown and white dog, Pepper. I found Claire in his friends list. Then I found Rachel. Then photos. Not intimate, not obvious. A backyard barbecue, restaurant patio. One picture from 6 months earlier. Claire sitting beside Luke, Rachel across from them, Emma in the background holding the dog's leash. I stared at the date. That was one of the weekends Claire had told me Rachel needed help with renovations. I kept scrolling. Then another photo. Private enough that I almost missed it. A group picture from a charity event. Luke's hand rested on Claire's lower back. Not proof. But people know the difference between a casual hand and a familiar one. I knew. At 8:10, the school email arrived. Emma's withdrawal form. Requested by Claire Carter. Reason. Relocation. New district. Jefferson County Public Schools. Effective Friday. My daughter wasn't visiting Kentucky. She was moving there. And apparently I was the last person in our family being informed? I called Claire again. This time she answered. Ben, where are you? At Rachel's. Is Luke there? Silence. That was all I needed. Did you sign my name on a lease? Her voice became careful. Can we not do this tonight? Did you? I knew you'd help with Emma. That wasn't my question, she exhaled. Yes. I stood up from the kitchen table. You forged my signature. It was electronic. That doesn't make it mine. You make more than enough to qualify. I honestly couldn't believe the sentence. This isn't about qualifying. I needed housing. With Luke? Another silence. There it was. Are you sleeping with him? Ben. Are you? She whispered. It's complicated. Nothing is complicated after that answer. How long? I'm not doing this over the phone. You moved our daughter. I moved her somewhere stable. She has a home. Not with the way things are. What way? She didn't answer. Then I heard a man in the background. Low voice, close. Claire covered the phone, but not fast enough. I heard him say, just hang up. I went completely cold. Put Luke on. No. Put him on. This is exactly why I didn't tell you. I laughed once, not loudly. You didn't tell me because you knew what you were doing. That isn't fair. You signed my name, moved our child, and withdrew her from school. You were never going to agree. That's what consent means. She started crying. I heard Rachel in the background now too. Then Luke again. I didn't need any more voices. I said, do not sign anything else in my name. Ben, I'm calling a lawyer. Then I hung up. By 9 the next morning, I was sitting across from a family law attorney named Melissa Grant. She read the lease, the school withdrawal, the emails. Then she asked one question. When did you last physically see your daughter? Yesterday at 4:30. Melissa looked at the clock. Good. Why good? Because we moved now. She explained that Claire couldn't just relocate Emma permanently across state lines without dealing with custody and residency issues. She also explained the forged guarantor agreement was separate, potentially serious. Then she noticed something on the lease application. Ben. What? This employment verification. I leaned closer. My employer was listed correctly. Salary correct. Supervisor contact, Derek Shaw. I frowned. My supervisor is Monica. Who's Derek? I don't know. Melissa dialed the number on speaker. A man answered. Shaw Consulting. Melissa asked for Derek. This is Derek. She identified herself. Asked whether he had verified employment for Benjamin Carter. He paused, then said, I verify employment for multiple private clients. Did you speak with Mr. Carter's employer? No. Then how did you verify it? Another pause. I was provided documentation. By who? He refused to answer. Melissa hung up. I looked at her. What does that mean? It means your wife didn't just use your signature. She tapped the lease application. She had someone fabricate employment verification too. My phone buzzed before I could respond. A text from Claire. Please don't make this ugly. Emma is finally happy here. Then another. Luke says we can cover the lease ourselves if you just withdraw the fraud complaint. I stared at the message. I hadn't filed a fraud complaint yet. I looked at Melissa. How does Luke know we're talking about fraud? She didn't answer immediately. Then her phone rang. She listened for about 30 seconds. Her expression changed. After hanging up, she looked at me. That was the leasing company. And? They ran a deeper review after your call. My stomach tightened. What did they find? She turned the lease application toward me. There's a second guarantor. I frowned. I only saw mine. Because yours replaced the original. Who was the original? Melissa read the name. Rachel Morgan, Claire's sister. Then she looked at me. Her application was rejected. Why? Too much debt. I understood before she finished. So, they replaced her with me? Yes. Without telling me? Yes. Then Melissa showed me the upload history. Rachel's guarantor application had been denied Monday morning. My forged application was submitted Monday afternoon, 4 hours later. This wasn't Claire panicking because she needed somewhere to stay. It was coordinated. Rachel had tried first. When she couldn't qualify, they used me. And suddenly I realized Claire's sister hadn't just known about the move. She had been helping plan it from the beginning. Part 2. Melissa didn't waste time. Before I had even finished reading the lease paperwork, she was drafting 2 filings. One challenged the relocation. The other demanded preservation of every document connected to the apartment application. People delete things when they panic, she said. I'd rather make that expensive. I appreciated how calm she was. I was still trying to process the fact that my wife had apparently built an entirely separate life while asking me to help Emma finish her science project 3 nights earlier. The leasing company called back around noon. This time the regional manager handled the conversation. He apologized before saying anything else. Mr. Carter, we've frozen the application. I don't care about the apartment. You might. We've also suspended possession. That got my attention. What does that mean? It means nobody receives keys until we verify the guarantor documents. When were they supposed to move in? Tomorrow morning. I looked at Melissa. She nodded. Good. At least one door had just closed. Then the manager added something unexpected. There was another issue. What? The employment verification email. What about it? It came from a domain that doesn't exist. I frowned. What? The verification appears to have been fabricated. So whoever verified my employment wasn't connected to your employer. Exactly. Melissa requested the original application file. It arrived about an hour later. Every upload, every timestamp, every document. The first pages were exactly what I expected. Claire's driver's license, Emma's birth certificate, income statements. Then I reached the guarantor section. Rachel's application. Rejected. Reason, Debt to income ratio. Then mine. Approved. Submitted 4 hours later. Different email address, different phone number, same apartment, same move-in date. Melissa pointed to the metadata. Look here. The first application had been uploaded from Louisville. The second came from the same IP address. So, Rachel submitted both? Maybe. Or someone using her internet. Either way, it wasn't me. That afternoon, I finally called my brother. Ethan lived about 30 minutes away and owned a small HVAC company. He answered with his usual greeting. You break something? My marriage. Silence. Then, I'm on my way. He arrived at my house carrying takeout and 2 coffees. I walked him through everything. The lease, the school withdrawal, Luke, Rachel, the fake guarantor. When I finished, he sat quietly for a minute. Then he asked the question nobody else had. Has Emma talked to you? I looked down. No, not once. Claire answered every call. He nodded slowly. That bothers me. It bothers me too. Emma was 9. She usually called me if she was at Rachel's house for more than a day. To tell me about a movie, a soccer game, something the dog did. Nothing. Not one call. That wasn't Emma. That was someone deciding who Emma could talk to. Around 6 that evening, my phone rang. Unknown Kentucky number, I answered. Ben? Female voice, older. I don't think we've met. No. My name is Susan. I waited. I'm Luke's mother. That wasn't where I expected the conversation to go. Okay. I probably shouldn't be calling. No offense, but I agree, she sighed. I found your number through public records. Interesting. Why? Because my son isn't telling me the truth. I stayed quiet. He told us Claire was divorced. There it was. Not separated. You divorced. He introduced Emma as his girlfriend's daughter. I rubbed my forehead. When? 3 months ago. 3 months. That meant Luke hadn't entered the picture after Claire left. He'd already introduced her to his family. Well, she was still living in my house. Susan continued. I didn't know any of this until yesterday. What changed? I saw the engagement photos disappear from Claire's social media. I frowned. We weren't engaged. I know. I meant your wedding pictures. Claire had archived every family photo overnight. Apparently, Luke's mother noticed. My husband asked questions. And? Luke admitted she was still married. I leaned back. What do you want from me? She hesitated. The truth. I laughed quietly. So do I. Before hanging up, she said one last thing. Luke told us you already knew about them. No. I figured. Melissa smiled when I told her about the call. Why are you smiling? Because people keeping secrets rarely coordinate their stories. Luke had apparently told his parents one version. Claire told the leasing company another. Rachel had her own version. Sooner or later, those stories would collide. The next morning, we filed for temporary emergency custody. Not because I wanted to keep Emma from Claire, because I wanted the court involved before a new school year, new doctors, and a new routine made the move look permanent. Then, Melissa asked something I hadn't considered. Do you have access to Emma's tablet? I think so. Check the family account. I logged into our parental controls. Emma's tablet had synchronized overnight. Most messages were between her friends. Then one voice memo caught my attention. Recorded accidentally while the microphone was still running. Emma's voice. Do I have to call Luke Dad? Silence, then Claire. No. What if I forget? You won't. What about Daddy? A longer silence, then another adult voice, Luke. We'll figure that out later. The recording ended. Nobody in the room spoke. Melissa quietly copied the file. "Don't play that again," she said. "I don't think you need to." She was right. Once was enough. Around lunchtime, Claire finally agreed to meet. Public place. A coffee shop halfway between Indianapolis and Louisville. She arrived alone. No Rachel. No Luke. She looked exhausted. "I don't want to fight." "Good. Neither do I." She sat down. So. For almost a minute, neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked, "When did it start?" She didn't pretend not to understand. "Last fall." "With Luke?" "Yes." "So before Christmas?" She nodded. "And the weekends at Rachel's?" She looked away. "I know." "You introduced him to Emma?" "Eventually." "When?" "January." I stared at her. "Our daughter has known your boyfriend for 8 months?" She whispered, "Yes." "You never thought I deserved to know?" "I kept thinking I'd tell you." "When?" "When I understood what I wanted." I almost smiled. "You signed a lease. You withdrew Emma from school. You packed half the house. I think you knew." Claire closed her eyes. "I know." "No." I shook my head. "You had already decided." She looked up. "Ben, I wasn't part of the decision." That one landed. I could see it. Then she surprised me. "I never wanted you to guarantee the lease." I frowned. "What?" "I wanted Rachel to. But she couldn't qualify." Claire nodded. "I found out Monday." "So, whose idea was it to use me?" She looked down. No answer. "Claire." Still nothing. Then quietly, "Luke knew someone. The fake employment verifier." She nodded once. "His friend said it would go through." My stomach tightened. "So Luke arranged it." "He said it was only paperwork." "Forgery is paperwork now?" She started crying. I wasn't thinking. I believed that. People doing desperate things rarely stop to label them correctly. "What exactly was Luke telling you?" She wiped her face. "That we'd never get approved if we waited for the divorce. So the plan was to move first, handle everything later." There it was. The entire strategy. Relocate, enroll Emma, start a new life, then force me to react after everything was already established. The apartment, the school, the relationship. Every step depended on creating facts before I had a chance to object. Then I asked one question I had been saving. "Did Luke ever tell you to stay married until the lease was approved?" Claire froze. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence was enough. Because if Luke had really believed their relationship was the future, why was he waiting for my income to help finance it? And suddenly, I wasn't looking at an affair anymore. I was looking at a plan that depended on my salary right up until the moment I became unnecessary. I drove home alone after meeting Claire. For the first time since this started, I wasn't wondering whether my marriage could be saved. I was wondering how many people had quietly participated in replacing me before I even knew I was being replaced. Rachel, Luke, the fake employment verification, the forged guarantor application. Someone had coordinated all of it. Claire hadn't done this by herself. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. Until then, Emma had to remain where she was. That part was brutal. Every night I called at 7. Every night Claire answered first. Sometimes Emma talked for 5 minutes. Sometimes only 2. She always sounded cheerful. Kids adapt faster than adults. That isn't always a good thing. On Thursday, she asked, "Dad?" "Yeah, sweetheart." "Are you coming to my new room?" I swallowed. "What new room?" "The apartment." "I don't know yet." "It's really pretty." "I'm glad you like it." Then she asked the question I had been dreading. "Are you moving too?" I closed my eyes. "No." There was a long pause. "Oh." Then she changed the subject and started talking about pepper chasing squirrels. 9 years old. Already learning how adults avoid conversations. Friday morning, Melissa called before I left for work. "We've got another problem." I almost laughed. "Go ahead." "The school. What about it?" "They already forwarded Emma's records." "But the move isn't approved." "I know." I sat down at my kitchen table. "So she's enrolled?" "Provisionally." Melissa sounded irritated. "The paperwork represented that both parents consented." I stared out the window. "There's another signature." "Yes." "Mine?" "Yes." I rubbed my forehead. "Another forgery." "Yes." I had reached the point where that answer barely surprised me. By lunchtime, the school district's attorney called Melissa. Once they realized the father's signature had been disputed, they froze the enrollment. Emma could still attend temporarily because of residency rules, but permanent registration stopped immediately. One more piece of the plan had stalled. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. Rachel called me, not a text, not through Claire, directly. I answered. "What?" she sighed. "I deserve that." "Probably." "I want to explain." "I'm listening." She stayed quiet for a few seconds, then said, "This wasn't supposed to happen like this." I almost smiled. "What exactly was supposed to happen?" "You and Claire were supposed to separate peacefully." "You mean after moving my daughter across state lines?" "I told her not to forge anything." "Interesting. Not don't move. Not don't have an affair. Just don't forge anything." "So you knew?" "I knew she wanted out." "You introduced her to Luke." Silence. "Rachel." "Yes." There it was. "Why?" "I thought they'd be good together." "You thought introducing your married sister to another man was helping?" "They met at a charity fundraiser. After you invited him." "Yes." I leaned back. "When?" "Last September. 9 months. Long before Claire started talking about needing space." Rachel kept talking. "They were friends at first." "Sure. I'm serious." "I believe you. Because that's usually how affairs begin. Not dramatically. Gradually." She continued. "Claire kept saying she felt invisible." I looked around my empty kitchen. "I didn't know that." "I know." "Did she ever tell me?" Rachel didn't answer. No, she hadn't. Instead, she told Luke. Then Rachel said something that changed the story again. "Luke was already separated." I frowned. "What?" "He and his wife had filed months earlier." "His mother says otherwise." "I know." "So who lied?" Rachel hesitated. "Luke." That caught me off guard. "He told Claire the divorce was almost final." "It wasn't." "He told us the same thing." I frowned. "So Claire didn't know?" "No. That mattered. Not enough to erase anything. Enough to change one piece. Claire had lied to me. Luke had lied to Claire. The chain was getting longer." Monday's hearing lasted less than 30 minutes. The judge wasn't interested in speeches. Only documents. Melissa presented the forged lease, the disputed school enrollment, the fake guarantor agreement. Claire's attorney admitted the signatures were under review. Then the judge asked Claire one question. "When did you decide to relocate the child?" Claire looked down. "About 3 weeks ago." Melissa immediately handed over the lease timeline. The original apartment application was dated 6 weeks earlier. The judge looked at Claire. "Help me understand." Claire's attorney tried to interrupt. The judge stopped him. Claire finally answered. "I was exploring options." Melissa quietly slid another document forward. A moving company estimate, 8 weeks old. Then another. A storage unit rental, 7 weeks old. Then another. Utility transfer requests, 6 weeks old. Every document told the same story. The move had been planned long before Claire claimed it became necessary. The judge wrote several notes, then looked directly at Claire. You were preparing a relocation before informing the child's father? Claire whispered, Yes. No explanation. No excuse. Just yes. The temporary order came 15 minutes later. Emma would return to Indiana within 72 hours, until custody could be fully evaluated. Neither parent could relocate her without court approval. Educational decisions required both signatures. Neither party could create new financial obligations using the other's information. Simple, clear, exactly what should have happened before any of this started. Claire cried after the hearing. Not loudly, just quietly while packing her files. I almost walked over. Almost. Then I remembered every document she'd signed with my name. Outside the courthouse, Luke was waiting. First time I'd ever seen him in person. Average height, khakis, blue button-down shirt. The kind of guy you wouldn't notice walking through a grocery store. He stepped toward me. I'd like to explain. No. You don't know everything. I know enough. I love Claire. I looked at him. You loved her enough to help forge financial documents? His face changed. I didn't forge anything. You arranged the employment verification. He hesitated. I introduced her to someone. Who lied? I didn't know he'd do that. Maybe. I shrugged. But you still used it. He looked away. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. I thought your marriage was over. I nodded. Maybe it was. But it wasn't your job to finish it. He didn't answer. Emma came home 2 days later. She ran through my front door like she'd been gone for months instead of a week. Hank nearly knocked her over trying to greet her. For the next hour, we talked about everything except court, school, soccer, Pepper, Rachel's backyard. Finally, she looked up at me. Dad? Yeah. Are you mad at Mom? That question had been coming. I took a breath. I'm disappointed. Because of Luke? Kids notice more than adults think. Some grown-up decisions were made that weren't fair. She thought about that. Can I still love everybody? I smiled. Of course. That was the only answer she needed. Children shouldn't have to choose sides just because adults failed each other. 3 months later, the divorce mediation finally happened. Most issues settled quickly. The house would be sold. Retirement accounts divided. Savings split according to state law. Then we reached custody. Claire surprised everyone. She withdrew her request to relocate Emma permanently. Melissa looked at me. I looked at Claire. Why? Claire answered quietly. Because Emma shouldn't lose her dad. No speeches. No dramatic apology. Just one sentence. Sometimes people arrive at the right conclusion far too late. After mediation ended, Claire asked if we could talk outside. Just the two of us. We stood near the parking lot for several minutes. Finally, she said, Luke moved out. I nodded once. Okay. He wasn't the person I thought he was. I believe you. He'd been seeing someone else. That almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, because it fit. When did you find out? The week after court. I looked at her. The same week you found out he was never actually divorced? She nodded. I ignored a lot of things. You did. She wiped at her eyes. I kept telling myself that once I got out of my marriage, everything would finally make sense. And? She gave a tired smile. It turns out, bad decisions don't become good ones just because you make them for someone new. There wasn't really anything to say after that. We stood there for another minute. Then I wished her well and walked to my truck. Looking back, people always ask what hurt the most. The affair, the forged signatures, the apartment. The answer is none of those. The hardest part was discovering that my family had been reorganized without me. School forms, housing, future plans, all quietly discussed in rooms where I wasn't even present. The marriage ended because Claire chose someone else, but the trust ended much earlier. It ended the moment she started building a future that depended on my signature, without ever asking for it. Emma is 12 now. She spends 1 week with me and 1 week with Claire. We both make every parent-teacher conference, every soccer tournament, every birthday. We're not friends, but we're good parents. And strangely enough, that's enough. Every once in a while, I still think about that first email from the apartment complex. Back then, I thought it was the beginning of my worst week. It wasn't. It was simply the first document that accidentally told me the truth. Everyone else had already been living